If we're being completely honest with ourselves here, we're bordering on a ridiculous number of weapons that are currently inside Warzone at the moment, and it's kind of hard to decipher what kind of categories each of these weapons fit into, and this video is going to go over what are the 6 best low recoil options that are currently inside Warzone. This is going to help beginner players figure out what are the best weapons. If you do enjoy content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we try to reach our goal of 50k subscribers. Click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. We do post extra content over there. But like I said, this video is all about the low recoil options. Let's get straight into it. So what we have here to make this super easy to understand is we've got a tier list of probably what are considered the 12 lowest recoil weapons in the entire game. We've taken 4 weapons from Vanguard, 4 from Cold War, and 4 from Modern Warfare. And we're going to go over kind of the best balance between TTK, recoil, and which ones have the kind of weird recoil patterns as well. Even though they're low recoil, some of them just have like a squiggle recoil pattern and it's kind of difficult to manage. So we're going to go through all of that. So the KGM40, in my opinion, is a low recoil weapon. It's definitely a solid option, but I just think it doesn't hit quite hard enough to use, especially at those longer distances. Some of these weapons are kind of absolute pea shooters, so you don't really want to be using them. So the KGM40, in my opinion, is not going to be probably the top tier option for this, and it's going to go down in the no section. Now, it's still a good weapon, you can still definitely use it. I just don't think it's as good as some of the other options on this list. The Kilo, in my opinion, a lot of people know how I feel about the Kilo. Even though it's super low recoil, very, very easy to use, which you could definitely get away with trying this out if you really wanted to. At those longer distances, it just feels like an absolute pea shooter, and that's the only reason I can't really recommend this weapon too much, because it's just not going to do any damage whatsoever, especially with that 300 health now. The Krig is a very similar case because it's got a 3rd damage drop off point, and so does the Kilo. It's going to feel like a pea shooter at those extremely long distances. Now, will you be landing your shots? Of course, but again, you're not really going to be doing too much damage there. The M13, in my opinion, is actually a very solid option. It's super low recoil. It's got a pretty solid TTK at those longer distances. Of course, it's not going to be as fast as like a AK from Cold War or a C58 or something like that, but you're still going to land your shots pretty much every single shot. So that is why I think it's a solid weapon. A couple of headshots will get you a faster TTK as well. The M4 is not the lowest recoil option out of the bunch here, so that's why I can't really put it in yes, because even though it has a very consistent recoil pattern, it has a very consistent TTK, it's just not a super low recoil gun, even though it is relatively low recoil. Then we've got the STG, and the STG is very similar to the M4 in this case. It's got an overall very good TTK now, although the gun does bounce a little bit more than it used to because they actually nerfed the recoil on this weapon. But again, I just feel like with the way the kind of meta is at the moment, it's not like the lowest recoil weapon in the entire game. Then we've got the Vargo. The Vargo is definitely super low recoil in my opinion. It also hits really hard at those longer ranges. It only has 2 damage drop off points. So the Vargo overall is a very solid weapon in my opinion. The same goes for the XM4. Again, at those longer distances, I feel like with the XM4, you could definitely hit your shots, and also you're going to get a consistent TTK. Now, it's not going to kill as fast as some of the other weapons because it did get some damage nerfs, but it's going to land the shots at those ranges for you, and that's kind of the main thing here. Then we've got the Automaton, and the Automaton is probably my favorite personal Vanguard weapon to use for long range in general, even over the STG. I just feel like it's super low recoil. You're going to get a very consistent TTK. You've got a good mag size with 75 rounds, which you don't get with pretty much any other weapon. So overall, the Automaton, in my opinion, is probably one of the better options to use in the entire game right now, especially for consistent low recoil. Next up, we have the Fara, and the Fara is a bit of a weird one. I really like the Fara. I think it's a really solid weapon to use, whether it's caldera, rebirth, anything. Super solid weapon, very meta weapon as well, but the only issue is not the lowest recoil weapon out of this bunch. Now, it has a bit of a kick to it to begin with, and then once you get past that, then obviously you're kind of on the right track if you can manage the recoil. But that is kind of one of those weird things where beginner players might not necessarily like it. So the Fara is in a no. Cooper Carbine, super low recoil once again, very similar to the Automaton. If you build it correctly, you're going to be landing your shots super easy at long range. It's kind of a no-brainer to use the Cooper Carbine at the moment, especially with its most recent buff. And the Grau is always going to be in that yes category. We all know the Grau by now. Super low recoil, very easy to use. Hit your shots, get your kills. So let's quickly fly through these builds of these super low recoil weapons. We'll start off with the Modern Warfare weapons first. So we've got the M13 right here, so you've got to use the mono suppressor, marksman barrel, commando foregrip, 60 round mags, and VLK optic. This is the standard meta build for the M13, and is the only way we could use this weapon to have that super low recoil. Next up, we have the Grau, and the Grau, once again, is a very easy to use gun. And overall, I would recommend this build right here. So the mono suppressor, the Archangel barrel, the commando foregrip, 60 round mags, the VLK optic. You can actually get rid of the VLK optic and use the iron sights on the Grau because they're super clean. On top of that, you could actually remove the Archangel barrel, use the Nexus barrel, and the VLK optic. Some people actually prefer this build because it gives you a bit better ADS times and you still get a pretty solid bullet velocity. But in my opinion, the overall best build for this gun is the one with the Archangel barrel and the VLK optic, especially if you're using this gun for long range. Next up, we have the Cold War weapons, and the ones that I think are the absolute meta right now. So when it comes to the Vargo, which I think is probably one of the best rifles in the entire game at the moment, you got to use the GRU suppressor for the sound suppression, the damage range, all that good stuff. Task Force barrel for the recoil control, axial 3x optic, 60 round mags, and the Spetsnaz grip. I think this is probably one of the meta weapons in the entire game at the moment. Then we've got the XM4 with a very similar build right here. So we've got the agency suppressor for the sound suppression and damage range once again, Task Force barrel for the recoil control, axial 3x, field agent grip for the best recoil control, 60 round mags. Overall, super easy to use weapon once again as well. Moving on into the Vanguard weapons now, we have the Cooper carbine first. Both of these guns have similar builds once again, but we're starting off with the MX silencer here. And the MX silencer actually has a hidden stat to help bullet velocity as well, which is actually not stated in game, but it also helps the best with recoil control. We're using the Cooper custom barrel, which helps with fire rate, but also gives you the best possible recoil control. G16 optic, or you could use whatever you like. Custom padded stock is the best stock for this gun because it helps with the accuracy with sustained fire. Vital we need for that faster TTK. Now you can use tight grip for better recoil control, but I do think you need Vital on there to make this gun feel a lot more powerful. On hand for better ADS time. Polymer grip for the better recoil control once again. 60 round drum mags overall will help with the fire rate, and it also helps with the recoil control as well. Lengthened and the hand stop under barrel for recoil control once again. Last up, we have the Automaton, and one of my favorite weapons to use at the moment. So again, MX silencer for that hidden bullet velocity buff, but also for the best recoil control. The 600mm barrel is the best barrel to use for the Automaton. Like I said, I've tried out every single barrel on this weapon, and this is the absolute best. G16 optic or whatever you like. Anastasia padded stock, or you can use the skeletal stock. But again, if you're wanting the best possible recoil control, the padded stock's the best. Tight grip for the best recoil control. We don't have Vital available on this weapon. On hand for the better ADS time. Polymer grip for the best recoil control. 75 round mags is the best mags for this gun. It actually gives it the fastest TTK as well. Lengthened and the hand stop under barrel once again. So those are the 6 lowest recoil weapons to use inside Warzone at the moment. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe as we try to reach our goal of 50k. Click on screen just now to watch one of our previous videos, and thank you very much for watching.